So hello and welcome to my next chess video. This time I'm showing you the game between Dragon by Komodo Chess versus Stockfish 8. And I gave them the Tarrasch opening from the Queen's Gambit declined, which starts after the moves d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3 and c5. This is the position I gave them. And Komodo played the move, or Dragon Komodo played the move c takes d5, pawn takes d5, and now knight to f3, and Stockfish took, and now we have knight takes d4. So black has this IQP. This is kind of a weakness. Currently it's attacked once, but also defended by the queen, so there shouldn't be a problem. Also it's black's move. Casual moves like knight here are, yeah, I would have played this as well. It's just a normal developing move. Probably bishop e7 or bishop c5 coming up, and white should probably develop normally with knight pawn here, but then maybe h6 and g5. Things like this could happen. We have bishop g5, but now bishop e7 by Stockfish 8, so immediately I'm pinning, preparing to castle. Next move, so white is probably going e6, then castles and bishop e2, bishop f5, followed up with knight c3 and stuff. So all pretty casual. I let them play without opening book or table bases, as always, kind of. But anyway, so let's see, we have e6, now most probably castles, and this position should be fairly standard. This knight wants to come here, maybe to there, so let's go a3. Okay, he goes a6 instead of castling, prevents any knight from coming to b5. So a6, preventing those knights from coming there to b5. Also a useful move later. Also covers against this bishop check, which could be handy in some variations, I don't know. But bishop e2 also possible, was bishop d3 maybe. But anyway, bishop here covers this square here. So the bishop has only that one to has only f5 to develop if he wants to develop actively. Could also go to e6, cover this pawn once again, but then maybe knight captures, and you have a weakness here on e6. So maybe most normal moves are castles here, or maybe bishop f5, knight c6, also possible. So those are the three moves I would recommend here. The most normal move is castles, but after castles there's maybe this g5, and then the bishop can come here, and then h5, h4, h6 maybe at some point. But then this king doesn't feel very safe as well, because this rook can come to the c file, so this might be a little bit too risky. So let's see, Komodo can also castle here. Other moves are maybe bishop here to immediately put pressure on this pawn, threatens knight takes. So let's see, bishop f3, bishop e6 then to cover this, and then castles. Maybe this is a slight improvement to castles immediately, because the bishop isn't on f5 eyeing the c2 square and all those squares. But the other thing is, after bishop f3, bishop e6, castles. It's pretty standard for both sides. So, but we have castles, and now again I give those two moves here, maybe even bishop e6. So let's see what Stockfish does here. Yeah, knight c6. So knight takes, pawn takes would strengthen the control of the d5 square. Also now c5, c4 or c5, d4 are in the air, but this pawn could also become a weakness. But anyway, also c4 is currently not possible because of bishop takes, and knight takes, although after all you have bishop takes here, but then rook there, the bishop moves back. Could be something, but this d5 pawn, I wouldn't take this and allow that to happen. I would just leave it that way, maybe play rook c1 here. Other possibilities are maybe, yeah, rook c1 was chosen by Dragon Komodo. So now knight takes, and now I wouldn't go pawn takes, I would go queen takes to add some pressure to this pawn here, and now threaten bishop takes, although after all the b pawn would hang, so d4 b pawn, I don't know, maybe even force this, because this looks pretty drawish. Although, yeah, okay, you can go b5, allow this fork, but then you have 2 against 1 on the queen side, against 4 against 3 on the king side. This is probably nothing, but h6 wasn't chosen. Rook e8, also a fine move. h6 can be played at basically any time, so rook there was chosen. And now Komodo Dragon needs to find a game plan. Maybe something like bishop here now, bishop f3. So let's go bishop f3, knight takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop e3, bishop takes, attacks the queen, so this might not be something. And now you maybe have to worry about something like d5 even. Although currently, well, it does kind of work because you get the b pawn back. So also after d5 you cannot grab here because of taking the knight with an attack on the queen. So d5 you first have to grab it, and after takes, rook b8, bishop back, bishop takes here. Rook takes here is not possible though. So you kind of, after, well, this is not on, so after c takes, queen takes, bishop takes, rook here, bishop f3, and rook there, you also have some issues. This pawn is hanging, the knight is hanging, so this is probably not advisable to go bishop f3. Bishop f3 was played, and bishop, not knight takes, but bishop e6, rather, to protect this pawn anymore. But now we are in this line, maybe, so bishop takes. I wouldn't go bishop takes, wouldn't give up the bishop that easily, and even if h6 I would go bishop f4 or bishop there. Okay, Komodo took. Now this rook would rather be on the f file, I guess, although now bishop back and the rook covers this pawn, also those pawns can march forward. So now there is no IQP anymore, and yeah, bishop f4 is now not that great because then e5 attacks the bishop. So what is Komodo's plan here? Queen b3, trying to go after this pawn, maybe knight a5, attacking the queen, queen here, maybe attacking the knight, but then this is not attacking the knight, so queen a4, b5, and queen has to retreat, and then the knight comes to c4, b3, knight here even, with the idea h6 in some variations maybe. But anyway, this is not that great. So g3 was played. creating some luft for the king and also a retreat square for the bishop. And we have rook c8. So normal moves by both sides. Rook c8. Let's see. Queen b3 does nothing because of knight a5. I don't make progress here. h4, h6. Doesn't seem as though. And here the bishop is even trapped. So you can't do something like this. After h4 you kind of have to grab. This position here is probably okay for black. Probably even better. So probably not that. But you can do different things here. Bishop g4, for example, going after that pawn. First you kind of have to eliminate the knight, and then bishop there. Now this pawn cannot move because it's pinned, but it's now also defended by the rook, so that's probably not so good either. We have bishop f6. Bishop f6, and now... Oh, if the rook would be there, then there would maybe be some knight sacrifice, followed off with bishop takes, and although the pawn is still covering this. Bishop g5 anyway, because pinning this pawn. h5 is not possible because this is not the queen. It's rather a rook. So let's see, bishop there, but how can you increase the pressure? Let's give a token move. Is knight takes, queen takes, something, not b3 of course. Takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, rook takes. 5 versus 6 pawns, rook versus 2 pieces, so it's probably nothing. But I'd still go there, because this just pinning that pawn might be useful. But how to increase the pressure? Maybe something like queen b3, rook there, or queen c2. But first you have to play a3 after queen c2. Oh, you go knight there. So instead, Komodo dragon tries to reinforce the control over this square, but what about d5 anyway? Doesn't it still work? The end of all. No, this doesn't work. So bishop takes, so you have to go rook takes, rook, queen takes, but now this pawn is covered and we have 4 against 5, 2 against 1 on the queen side. So d5 is not working here. You just grab, grab, grab. Even if queen takes, it shouldn't work. Bishop takes, rook takes, rook takes, bishop takes. Yeah, it's working. Bishops of opposite colors. I would have gone d5 here. Stockfish is of course a better player, goes bishop queen here. Knight f5. Maybe after d5 knight f5 would come anyway. So let's go with d5, knight f5, or grab first. Knight takes, knight f5, knight takes bishop, queen takes bishop. This pawn is covered, but this rook is coming there maybe, or this rook is coming there, this rook is coming there. Add some pressure towards this pawn. Might be something, I'm not sure. But d5 wasn't played, it was rather queen e7. Knight f4, rook there, and queen there. There's a lot to analyze because there is also in some variations this move, although then the d-pawn would hang. So this setup is very nice. The knight from here was only attacking this pawn, but now the knight from here is also attacking the pawn on e6. So now there might be some tactics after the rook is coming to the d file. So let's say h6, give a token move, rook here, give another, no, there is not really a token move, rook here, knight takes, queen takes, bishop takes. Now you have to give up the rook, and again you have two pieces for a rook. But now this time black has two, white would have two pawns, but those were just token moves. So we don't have that. Queen b3, knight a5 of course, and now queen c2 going on to the c file. So now if rook there, you gladly give up the queen for two rooks, but we have knight c5 covering everything, putting the knight on a very good square, also pressuring the b2 pawn. If b3 trying to kick the knight, then bishop here maybe, although this loses a piece now. So b3, knight e5, going after the bishop. What about knight takes? You have this check, so this doesn't work. So bishop has to move back, and now maybe g5. Knight a4, bishop all the way. f5. Takes, rook takes. All those squares are covered. The rook might at some point come here if the knight is gone. So yeah, bishop f3. This position shouldn't be on the board. I doubt Stockfish is playing that one. It's very weakening though. So let's see both evaluations here. So Komodo Dragon gives this as an edge for white. And Stockfish 8 gives it only as a slight edge to white, probably holdable. So went back with the knight. And now h4. Maybe the plan is to install a thorn pawn. Also very nice, it covers against any g5, so this knight is very stable here. But e5, still you hang that pawn. So bishop there, trying to get this knight to die, basically. Knight here also might be an idea at some point to add some pressure towards the queen and the pawn here. But then again, queen e2, a3, b5 might be some annoying moves. Queen e2 anyway here, so that after bishop takes you have pawn takes, add some pressure to this pawn, maybe rook here coming with some tactics there, although the knight is covering the queen twice, so it doesn't really work. So pawn here, e5, e4, so this might not be something, so probably g takes, but g takes loses the d pawn. So there are a lot of things to consider here. Stockfish decides to go all the way back, and now it's white's move again. Why not just continue pushing? Okay, first bringing the rook in position. Now white has very good rooks here on this half open and open files, but black's pieces are also not bad, so this might be something. This bishop on that diagonal, I'm not sure. On this diagonal it was looking at nothing anymore, so that's probably why Stockfish decided to put the bishop there, and now king here. If you play something else, let's see, were there any tactics? I don't really spot them. I don't really spot those tactics here. I really don't. King h8 looks like a nothing move to me. So now h5 anyway, because this doesn't work. There is this fork. So there, and now let's give a token move. What about knight here? Check, takes. Queen here is a threat, so let's prevent this. Oh, this is nothing, this sacrifice. Still, h4 I would go. Oh, there is a different way. I just spotted that one. This is very nice because now this pawn is pinned, knight here is threatened. This is interesting. But Komodo went for rook d2 instead, keeping his options open. This would be my game plan, something along those lines. But rook here trying to sacrifice something over there might also be something. So let's again give a token move, give yet another token move, knight takes pawn, queen takes pawn, bishop takes, rook takes, rook takes. Again you have 4 versus 6 pawns, so 2 pawns advantage for white, but 2 pieces versus a rook is always better, at least in those positions. Yeah, now I spotted why queen h4 is probably nothing, because of queen f6. Now there is no threat anymore and the queen is not very good placed. So rook d2, queen f6, queen f6. Now knight here. Maybe trying to go there to control those 2 squares even more and jump to e5. Although their knight is also covering those 2 squares. Good defender of those squares. Where is this knight heading to? Maybe knight here, attacking this pawn and that pawn, adding some pressure to that pawn. The knight was very well on f5 though. On f4 wouldn't have done that, but I'm not an engine anyway. So bishop here covers that square. But if knight here takes, rook there, rooks are doubling here maybe, and still you can go this. Okay, that's also a reason why he did that, because now he can go e4 without worrying about bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes. So e4. What about pawn takes, pawn takes knight, pawn takes, queen takes. Yeah, now black has this weakness there, and knight might come anywhere, and rook here, rook there. Some pressure towards this, rook here coming, add some pressure on the d file. A lot of things are possible here, but we have knight there and queen g5. So this checking square is covered twice, this square is covered twice. So the knight here is stable enough to stay, of course. Bishop takes, I would go, just to add some pressure to the king side and also attacking this pawn here. So now maybe b5. Although I wouldn't go b5, I would go b6. taking away this square for the knight, and if bishop here to attack this pawn, then you have a5. So yeah, bishop takes is probably the way to go here. But this now looks as though it is really a good position for white. There's still this possibility. There's also this possibility, and there is also pressure on that pawn. So I kind of really like this position here for white. There are those options. This is also hanging currently, and king here, rook there, opening up the files or creating a thorn pawn might also be something. There's a lot of things happening there, and this pawn is also kind of weak, and the bishop here is, I think, much stronger than this. So let's see what Stockfish has to say about this position. I think now he should, now he gives it as equal. Okay, what about Komodo Dragon? Again, edge for white. I would also give it as an edge for white, but not that great anyway. So rook, b6 was played because this pawn was attacked, so rook here. It's not really threatening the knight because bishop this doesn't come with check. The king is on h1, but okay. Maybe there are now some knight jumps anywhere, but I don't really know where. Wouldn't go here because then you have those doubled pawns there, and also an isolated pawn over here. So knight here might be possible. Knight b5, going after that pawn, and if bishop takes, then rook takes, and then you have an attack on the knight and also on the pawn, and you still have those opportunities. This probably not anymore because the rook can't come to the h file. There isn't no rook anymore here, but those pieces are really quite well working. Although knight here is probably also nothing because bishop takes also covers the knight, and then you have a5 or b5. Stockfish plays b5 immediately, attacks the rook. Rook takes knight with some discoveries doesn't work because the knight from here can never defend the rook. So this knight would then be pinned. So rook just moves back, and this maneuver really didn't do anything here for white. Black's position isn't bad here. White's position is also not bad, but I don't think it's a big edge for white. White has the upper hand here a little bit, but not that much, I guess. But maybe things... the game is still on. A lot of pieces and pawns still on the board, so a lot of things can happen. If it were me, I would go h5, h6 as white at some point, or I would have already done it. So rook here. This pawn is defended. Let's give a token move. That's not a token move, it would blunder that pawn, but I want to see what happens if knight here. Bishop takes, queen takes, queen takes, rook takes. Okay, this pawn is defended anyway because this pawn would still be over there, but what is happening here? Probably nothing. This knight just moves back, or not even moves back. Knight here attacking the rook. Rook moves back in f4, and if takes, you have this in between move and only then take back, but this is a complete draw. So this is probably what Stockfish is going for with that. So maybe maybe f4 is something to still go on and try something, but then maybe e5. And you get rid of this weakness, because if you don't take, you can't really push, because takes, bishop takes, queen takes, takes. The rook is defending the pawn, so you don't have knight here. But e5 here might be something. Okay, you go there, but now knight here forks. You would have to take. Yeah, it's probably also playable. Probably not so much, because knight here attacks the queen. The queen has to guard the square. The bishop can't take, because the queen is also eyeing the rook. So now queen here, but still shouldn't be anything here. At least I don't see anything there. But anyway, we had the move queen g5, e5, queen back and queen here. So a little bit of shuffling going around here, but the pawn is not on e6 anymore, but rather on d5, and it's white's move. So what to play here? Okay, white did the move king here to protect, or maybe he did it before. Let's see. King g2 on move 32, so he did it before at some point, but anyway, maybe I've overlooked that move, so sorry about it. So that, and now queen, rook f1. It should really be nothing for either side, I guess. What has Komodo Dragon to say about that position? Again, he gives it as better for white. I wouldn't say that, at least not for human players. Maybe a slight edge for white, but nothing to write home about. For engines, maybe this is much, but bishop d6, you still have to prove it. That there is an edge. And also 2 minutes is not much for Komodo. Also 3 minutes 25 is also not much for Stockfish 8, but still it's 1 minute more, so you have to take this into consideration as well. Rook d1 was played. c1 attacking the bishop, queen e8. So not really with a lot of ideas though this game for both sides. So rook there attacking the bishop. Probably going on that diagonal here, because this is much more useful than this diagonal. Here it's looking at its own pawn. And now finally we have the move h5. If h6 bishop here, maybe even without h6 bishop here. So let's give some move. Bishop here, takes, queen here. Or how is he defending against this stuff? So rook here, let's say, attacking this pawn. Queen here, check, 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 check. And he's running around like a madman. Also connecting with the knight, so king here, but rook there is... Or rook takes queen even. After this, you have that. So this check, you kind of have to take it with the rook. After takes, you still cannot take it because of rook here. So bishop f6 is a threat here. Bishop here is something. We had that move and then that move. Why not going there now? Takes. Rook here, check, check, and mate. But I think there is something. There is a defense. You don't have to take the bishop, of course. You can play queen here or anything. Anyway, so we had this h5. Queen here, rook there. Rook there. Would at some point go here. Only 1 minute versus 2 minutes. Approximately. But it's also, what is Stockfish saying about this position now? Still drawish, I think. Yeah, complete drawish. There is Komodo dragon. Gives it as an edge for white. I would also say it's an edge for white, but not a lot. Probably Stockfish can hold this still. Bishops of opposite colors. So bishop c7 back. Rook fc1 attacking the bishop. Doubling on the c-file. Knight here covering everything. No, knight e1. Maybe rerouting it to that square here at some point and attack this pawn. So knight e1. Stockfish is planning to go knight c3 to go after this bishop. This is very fine. So we go. You cannot really go back, so bishop here trying this, maybe threatening this checkmate. So let's say you go there, still threatening the mate. Go there, check and mate. Just knight f3 was played, so knight takes bishop, queen takes bishop, again an imbalance in the position. But Stockfish decided against it after knight f3, played his rook there. Rook here, bishop there. So now the clock is even. What about en passant? Then the knight is hanging. Okay. So fixing the pawns on the queen side. Bishop here. Stockfish doesn't have a real plan, but Komodo also not really with a plan. And only 50 seconds left, but they get 10 seconds per move. Oh, knight here. That's the idea. Going here with a check fork. So that's pretty nice. Knight takes, rook takes, still threatening this fork. So let's say the queen moves away, knight takes, rook takes. This is probably what Stockfish should do, but Stockfish went here instead. Oh, knight there is also a very nice little move. So Komodo is really showing something now. Now I think it's really an edge to white. What does Komodo Dragon say about this position now? Yeah, this is now very good for white. Stockfish also sees the danger now, but doesn't give it as such bad. Is so bad, and also 18 seconds is not much. Rook here, covering that pawn yet again. And now h6. Going g6 most probably. Or gh. gh6. Knight takes, now it's pretty fast. Knight takes most probably. So now this move, rook cannot move because this would be checkmate. Queen here, maybe idea at some point. So queen there, going for some counterplay maybe. Threatening this pawn now, also with the rook. But we had a different move there. So we had that, and now h6. Bishop there, and now knight takes, because now there is no rook check here anymore, so the bishop is looking to nothing. Rook went back because it was attacked. Maybe bishop here is an idea, followed up with queen here, followed up with queen there, mate. This could be something. No, the rook is covering f2, so it's probably nothing. So, but I'm also not sure what to play here with white. Knight back f5. Rook here. Let's see how Komodo finishes it, but probably Komodo is finished now. Rook here gets 10 seconds per move, but Komodo could very well lose on time here. Stockfish's very good time usage. But now they are in bullet mode. Half bullet, I'd say, because 10 seconds increment per move. So queen here. Queen there. Maybe trying to add some pressure to this pawn at some point. So rook here, queen there. Now let's just watch it because it's too fast anyway. with both engines giving an evaluation here. 5 versus not much. So Komodo Dragon will win this if he is not losing it on time. But this is a very strong position, so queen takes pawn, creating a passed pawn here on the queen side, but now rook f8, check, queen takes queen, has to block. Queen here, rook has to block. And then white is the exchange up, but you don't even have to take it immediately because it's a pin anyway. You can't do anything there as white. Rook g7, Stockfish takes a lot of time here for rook g7. This is an instant move, but knight takes g7, going into an endgame. Komodo is back to 20 seconds. Stockfish has 10.5. Picking up the A pawn. Yeah, this is completely busted for black, of course, but yeah, now Stockfish resigned the game. Yeah, it was really a cool game here. Let's flip it through again. So it's a little bit cut off here, but let's flip it through again. Just shortly. Bishop here. Yeah, it's a fine move, nothing wrong about this. Very nice finish, very nice point to that. Why not queen here immediately going after that pawn yet? It'd be good anyway. New variation, taking it, nothing wrong with that either. But anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time. Ciao.